Have you ever felt like you were stuck, holding on to what you know, yet feeling like you were meant for more? And when you're courageous enough to let go, you get stuck in that in-between space, the space of what was and what will be. And then you begin to wonder if where you thought you were going isn't quite where you were meant to be, and the challenge of leaning into the space outside your comfort zone. In this episode of Mind Game, I'm excited to introduce you to my longtime friend, Katie White, as we wonder about the transformative power that lies within the uncomfortable, the habits that help us level up, and the realization that the magic of the in-between is that without it, we'd never get to the places we didn't know we needed to be. So fasten your seatbelts, it's time to chat with Katie and lean into the lessons of the in-between, because the magic is in the mess. You just have to be brave enough to believe. Welcome to Mind Game, a podcast to level up your life. My name is Stephanie Painshaw, and I'm excited for you to join me on a journey behind the scenes where we'll dig into the stories of resilience, mindset, and unlock the simple habits that will help you change the game. Before we dive in, I want to express our gratitude for your continued support. Your energy powers our quest to provide content that encourages you to unlock new levels of personal growth and step out of your own comfort zone. If you're inspired by an idea or have a suggestion for a future topic, connect with us at mindgamelevelupyourlife.com. Your feedback is a power-up that helps us continue on this epic adventure. So if you're ready to get out of your own way and explore what you didn't know you needed to know, you've come to the right place. So buckle up, open up your mind. It's time to level up. So I'm excited to have on Mind Game Level Up Your Life today one of my great friends, Katie White. She is an author. She is an international speaker, an educational consultant. She was a teacher for 30 years, my mentor and my friend. I am so excited to have you here today. And most importantly, Katie is a person that when I talk to her, she just lights up my brain. I have so many more ideas after I finish talking with Katie. So I am super excited for all of you to meet Katie White. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steph. I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Me too, because Katie and I could talk for hours. So it's really going to be a challenge for us to keep this into under an hour because she has a coaching call in just a little bit. So let's start off with a question we ask most of our guests here, which is, what are you doing now? And then we'll lead into what's the story of how you got there.
So what I'm doing now career-wise is I am, what am I doing? I'm an educational consultant, an independent educational consultant. So
She's laughing because she just
I feel
retired
like,
from
well,
education.
and I feel like I do a lot of things. So trying to capture that is hard. But anyway, I think primarily I'm a coach, a facilitator, and a speaker. And a lot of that work is based on things I've written, things I've studied, things I've experienced. And the topic of most of the focus of my conversations is educational assessment. But sometimes I talk about learning and I talk about interventions and all kinds of things. So I'm dabbling these days in lots of different areas.
And enjoying life after education. I think you must be getting younger. That happens to teachers when they retire, they get younger. Katie has lots on her plate and travels all over the world to speak and present. And I always enjoy our time together. So what encouraged you to take that leap? Because Katie was actually in the coordinator of learning role that I moved into, but she was brave and actually took a leap of faith and went from full-time education work to full-time educational consultant. Or there was a sort of a transition period, but there was a little bit of a 2020 glitch in there also.
There sure is. That's true. So one of the things that I'm sure will resonate with lots of your viewers and listeners is I tried to do it all. And then when I figured out that I couldn't do it all, I had to decide where I was going to go. So it started out with doing lots of speaking and facilitating through my role, as you know, because that's what you do nowadays. And then I just started getting invitations to work outside my context and share with other people various things. And, when Twitter was at its best, there was lots and lots of connection through there. And I was meeting people from around the world. And So one of those people who I met was Tom Schimmer, who had been speaking and writing for a little while, and he was looking for people to work alongside him, and he sent me an invitation. But I will admit, I didn't know what I was in for in any way. Uh, oh, I just started doing the odd engagement here and there, mostly traveling to the United States, and then I started to feel, over the last number of years, that sort of tension between trying to manage a focus on my day job, trying to manage a focus on the travel, and of course my personal life, all of that. And so I made the leap because after 31 years, I was ready to maybe shift my focus and try and be in one place with my brain rather than all of those different places. So that's how I made the leap. But
Mhm.
I'm a cautious person, so I
Mhm.
didn't make the leap by some people just quit their jobs and they go for it. I'm less brave that way. I have too many people who are dependent on me. And so it was dipping my toe in, looking for opportunities, gradually increasing, trying to create that balance, and then reaching really that tipping point where I had to make a decision one way or another. So that's what I did.
And what an amazing leap that it was. And I was
Hmm.
joking about COVID because right when you took part of that leap and were in that crossover,
Hmm.
that's when everything was really busy, I remember you saying, and then it all slowed down and everything went virtual. So you had a
Yep.
crash course in instead of presenting face to face, presenting online.
Yeah, yeah, and there's still remnants of that at my work today. I mean, tonight I have a virtual coaching call with a school in Hawaii, and I do some of that virtual work. So I would say that's a good observation that the tenor of the work has changed, I think, permanently in lots of ways following the pandemic. We're always thinking how we can connect with people in the best way possible and what's the best for the people we're trying to serve. And so, yeah, I think I've had to be way more flexible in the last 4 years than I ever thought I could be.
And do you prefer face to face or online? Do you have a preference?
Well, it depends on which lens you're putting on. In terms of the authenticity of the work and really feeling like I'm connecting face to face is still the way to go, but that requires a day of travel on either end. So I like the virtual option as well because it allows me to be here with my family. It also allows people who don't have access to this kind of learning to have access. I mean, I think it creates greater equity for people. So I don't think I want to eliminate it. I kind of like the balance of the two. I think that's the best. The best is having both.
Nice. So we moved into a period of I think we all gained a crash course in skills of how to interact online.
Very
It
much.
connected us more globally. You mentioned that. And both of the guests that I've talked to just prior to recording this podcast spoke about how when we were growing up, we wouldn't have imagined the internet, let alone we would be talking or presenting to people on the other side of the world or traveling perhaps internationally as much for those purposes. So it's a very globally connected society. And like you said, it does open up more access for people who wouldn't normally get to go. And I think we've both been recipients of that in that you can
Hmm.
attend conferences where you wouldn't be able to afford to go to those locations. And now you can catch them online.
Yeah, I think, and you know what? I think that's a really good observation, Steph, because I think about as somebody who attends as opposed to presents, I do like that virtual option. It's possible to fit it in to a very busy day and not have to make this massive commitment. So, as somebody who's consuming digital products, I like it.
It's nice to be able to you can still go to work or watch it from home or do whatever you need to do and have access to international speakers that you just wouldn't have normally be able to connect with. And
Yeah.
sometimes online, it actually works out that you can even talk to them a little bit more or they'll take your
Yes.
question, and yet that might not happen in a room full of hundreds of different people.
Agreed.
So your speaking career has taken you all or your presenting or educational consultant career has taken you all over the world. Do you have a favorite location that it took you to?
Oh, jeepers. That's a
You know
tough
me, I think
one.
of questions as we go. I'm like, "I wonder where her favorite place is."
I
Or
don't.
one of.
Okay, well, in terms of, oh gosh, there are a lot. In terms of my own personal growth, going to Myanmar before the pandemic was pretty eye-opening for me. I just learned a lot, and it was also a really, really fun group to work with at that international school. It was over several days, and I think that was really positive. Ultimately, my favorite engagements are those that are across time. So if I can visit with people multiple times, whether it's face to face and virtual or, multiple days face to face, it's just you get to create that really meaningful relationship. And so anywhere where I've had a chance to be with people for longer than one moment, I think is my preference. And whether that's, I mean, gosh, a month ago I was in Wyoming. I've got a beautiful ongoing relationship with a school in Hawaii. I've got some lovely relationships with schools in British Columbia and Alberta. So yeah, I think those are my favorites just because when I show up, I see faces that I know and the greetings are personal. I really like that.
And I like that you mentioned it's the faces that we see and the connections that we have because that's part of what drew me to podcasting was and you mentioned earlier, the tipping point. You hit that tipping point, and I always
Mhm.
love Malcolm Gladwell's tipping point, where he
Yeah.
says you get to that point and then it just takes off. But he talks about 3 types of people, and the connector is one of the things that I strive to be on the podcast is
Mhm.
connecting listeners and viewers with people from around the world to talk about how we can level up our life. So was there anything that you did prior to making that leap? And we're gonna talk about the space in between because I
Mhm.
think that came from your mom, I
It
believe.
did. It
And
did.
so that space in between, was there anything that you did before you made that brave leap? And I say it's brave because
Mhm.
you let go of something you knew and you moved through that in between space. Was there a strategy that you used on the way through? And if there is, great. If not, if you want to talk about the in between space, I'm thinking the strategy will probably come to you.
Yeah. Oh gosh, you know what? I don't know if it's a single strategy. I am pulling up my notes because I thought about this. I thought about like what you just live your life and you hope that what you're doing and the way you're doing it is going to serve you and whatever purpose it is that you're drawn to. And some days I feel like that leveling up has been quite successful. And other days I think, man, when am I going to figure this out?
I'm
So
glad that
I,
you said that because I think we all I'd like the viewers to know that we all have days where we look like we
oh
have it together, and then it looks like it's together, but it's not really. We're just hanging on,
no,
and then it kind of comes and it goes, but that's just part of the ride and part of life,
yeah,
and John Gordon's book, I think The One Truth, he talks about when you recognize that life is full of ups and downs,
yes.
then you know when you're on a downswing that you know it's going back up and that that can help us navigate some of those paths.
That's exactly. I feel like that's what being on this earth for, 5 plus decades has really taught me. The hard way, of course, never the quick way, is that for every down there's an up and for every up there's a down and that nothing's going to be the same forever. And so really all we can do is just take our next best step and hope that it gets us in the direction that we want to go. So I think about I mean in terms of actual practical strategies because I find the work that I do challenging. Like it's not easy. I find it's hard on my head and my heart. And so I would say I do a fair bit of visualizing and rehearsing, if I'm honest. I think through what I'm about to do. So usually it starts, let's back it up. Usually it starts with me agreeing to do something that I'm not comfortable with. So I do that a lot, like
Step
a
out of your
lot,
comfort zone.
more than I want. I will admit I say yes more than no. And so then I'm in a bit of a pickle, right? Which is what I've created by choice. And so now I have to try and work my way through the challenge. And so that's when I start visualizing and imagining what it is I'm hoping for. So lots of preparation, but also lots of inward conversation. And I do a lot of like trying to move back from the practical into the reason why I'm doing it because I don't wanna be mechanical, and the only way I can not be mechanical in my work is to access the purpose behind it, and so I do a lot of that. If I'm on a plane and I'm heading to a place, I'm like, "What is it that that really matters in this work? What am I trying to do? What do I need to make sure that we bring forward and talk about?" So I do a lot of that. And then just before an event, I mean, I'm telling you my secret trick, but just before an event, I do a formal visualization and request from the universe, and I don't ask for a specific outcome because
Mhm.
I don't think I have any business doing that. But what I do ask for are attributes that will help carry me through no matter what's happening. So it could be that I make a request for, clarity, being clear, being passionate, being compassionate, connecting with people. I often ask for help with pacing because I really struggle. And I
Katie loves
ask
what she does, so she can get going really fast,
I
just
can
like me.
really get going, and I try to do too much in too little time. So I just ask for those kinds of things from the universe and then make a formal request really to myself for the
Mhm,
strength to help me help others because that's what I'm doing. I view the work that I do very much as serving others, and I know that the only way that I can do that is by grounding myself within myself. So I do a lot of that preparation work, um, that gets me in the zone, and I think that's just probably akin to what athletes do. It's
mhm.
probably akin to what lots of people do, but that's just how I go about it.
Well, and I thank you for sharing that because watching Katie present, she is an absolutely amazing presenter and you listen so well to the audience and you can take that feedback and adapt it on the go. And as a teacher, you're always making those decisions about are we good to go here? Where do we need to stop? We have a question. Let's address that now. And you do that so well. I think it's important for people to hear that behind the scenes, there's a lot of prep that goes into
A
that,
lot.
and that regardless of how many hundreds of presentations that you've done, you still go through that work. The visualization is still important. I appreciate that you asked the universe for you sort of set as an intention with what you're
Mhm.
looking for with clarity and with that purpose and helping people find their way. And so it reminds me of a Super Soul Sunday, I think it's called, with Oprah. And
Yeah.
she was talking with Michael Beckwith, and he said, it depends on the type of questions that you ask the universe. So if you ask empowering questions, the universe will empower you back. And he said, you said, I asked the universe for help or for support. And he called help, hello, eternal loving presence, as a
Ah.
way to reach out and connect with that energy and to ground and set that intention and move forward. So I thank you for sharing that because I think whether you're an athlete, whether you're a teacher walking into a classroom, whether you have to go into a place, you're an introvert like me and you have to walk into a place filled with
Mhm.
people and you don't know anyone, you might have to give yourself a little bit of a pep talk, and you are not alone if you do that because lots of us have to do that before we go. And that's a great strategy. And visualization, there's a lot of research behind that of the effectiveness of visualizing very clearly that you're in the room, that you're presenting to those people, that you can see them, you can hear it, you can feel it. The more clarity you have in your vision, or the more real it is, so the more senses you include in that visualization,
Mhm.
the more effective that it would be. So I really do very much appreciate that you shared that strategy.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite things to talk about, and I'm like checking the time, I'm like, we're still good. We're
I
still
know,
good.
I know, I know.
I'm like, because Katie and I could talk for a very long time. I'm hoping you will come back on the podcast again in the future.
Absolutely.
And you you've helped me navigate many changes in life, and one of the things that stuck with me was your mom had shared about the space in between. I think it's called the liminal space because the science
Mhm.
geek in me had to look it up. But you explain it so well, and I wanted to share that with our viewers.
Sure, sure. So that in between space, as my mom calls it, is the space between what was and what will be. And we're always in that space in some fashion or another, right? Because there's not really any such thing as arriving, but certainly we're moving from one place to another. And that in between space is is uncomfortable. We recognize it because we're probably urgently trying to get to the other side. It doesn't feel good to feel groundless or unclear or unsure. And so we often try to rush decisions when we're in that in between space, or we berate ourselves that we don't have clarity and joy. And, it's just it's a real struggle for us as humans to be okay with that ambiguity. But one of the things that I always love about what my mom has told me is she reminds me that when you're in the in between space, you have to give yourself time to ask the right questions while you're there. So don't jump to that next side. Take
Mhm,
some time to wonder correctly, make sure that you're not just replacing an old not so great place with a new not so great place, and just be okay with the fact that you will get clarity and you will know how to reach that other side, but you just can't rush it. You can't. And I think that recognizing that discomfort as part of growth has been very, very helpful for me. And sometimes I forget. Like, I'm just like, I feel bad. I just feel bad. and I made a mistake, and this isn't
Yeah.
right, and I shouldn't have done that. But if I can just stay with the feelings and ask the right questions and not try to rush, I think that the outcome is always better. Yeah.
I always appreciate that reminder, and it's always a good time for me to have that pep talk of the in-between space and the leaving the known to go to the unknown, but I liked what you said where we've never actually arrived. We're always on our way. It's the that we keep moving, that we keep making progress, that we have a target that we're moving towards, and I think it was in the same episode where Oprah said, um, she was talking about manifestation and how when you put the intention out there and you let it and you sit with it, it's more
Mhm.
likely to come back to you because it will in its own time. But when you try to rush it, she said it doesn't work. I think she said, I had a friend that said, I'm trying to do this manifestation thing and it's not working, it's not happening fast enough. And she's like, that's not how it works. Like you have to sit with it. You have to sit in that discomfort. And you've coached me through that several times. If sometimes if you're not getting pushback, if you're not feeling some of that discomfort, you're not actually growing. So bumping
Yeah,
those edges, I think is, as Jennifer Abrams would say, if you're stretching your edges and bumping out beyond what your comfort zone is, that's a good place to be. It's just not a comfortable place to
that's
be.
right. Well, and I would say around manifestation and that urgency to have things happen the way we want is I think the advantage of the in-between space is that sometimes what we're trying to manifest isn't the right thing. And so we need to give ourselves permission to also not hang on quite so tightly to a very specific outcome. Like that we definitely need goals, we need things we're striving for, we have meaning in our life, but how that's going to manifest could be a bunch of different ways, and that's really where I think rushing to that end point,
Mhm.
whatever it is we
Yeah.
think it is, can be actually quite dangerous because we'll probably end up in a better place if we just give ourselves time.
It's just not easy to
Not
sit
easy.
in between
No,
and wait and work on your energy and your vibrations and the level at which you're resonating at. And if you can stay in that in between and keep that intention and keep stepping forward, knowing that it will come when it's ready,
mhm,
as soon as you probably let go of it and it's not a big
that's
stress anymore,
right.
then it will come to
Then
you.
you get that clarity. That's
Right.
exactly. I keep thinking, Steph, every time we talk about this, my brain, what's in my brain is a canoe on a river. And I think about how people will try to paddle from one side to the other. That's letting go of one shore and
Yeah.
heading to the other. And we often, when we're paddling to the other side of like if we're paddling to the other side of a lake, we can get there. But if we're
Yeah.
paddling to the other side of a river, it's harder and
Yep.
more time going across than we think it would take. And what's really cool is around the bend of the river, there could be a beautiful forest or an oasis that we just can't see. And so part of going across is letting ourselves drift to that place that we're supposed to go. So it's like that balance of the struggle and the work, but also the letting be and letting go. That's
And I
the
like
that's
that you said it's still work. It's not that you just completely let
oh
go
yeah.
and think, "Wherever I end up."
Well, you'll end
It's
up
still
back on
work.
the same shore
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
were
yeah,
on if you
yeah,
don't do
that's
some
true. I really love
paddling.
the canoe. The canoe analogy is really good. You still have to paddle,
You still have
but
to
you don't have
paddle.
to paddle
It's not always a
insanely
straight line.
hard. Yeah, it's not always a straight line. And if you're an entrepreneur, it's, like, all over the place
That's
that the
right.
line is. But I like
Very
that.
much.
You're letting the current take you where it is. You're asking those empowering questions because the questions you ask, you will get answers, you will get signs. And, it's what Michael Beckwith said. If you ask the empowering questions rather than, "Why don't I have that?"
Right.
Right? If you ask me for clarity, if you ask to build strength, if you ask for patience, if you ask to find your purpose, those
Mhm.
things will come to you. I haven't learned how to ask all of those questions. Just to clarify with everybody, I don't have it all together. It is not that easy. I'm still learning. I did read Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, Supernatural,
Mhm.
which was really interesting because he pulls in the science of meditation and the quantum
Ah,
field, and I don't know if I think you'd find it quite interesting. He talks about the
okay.
Newtonian world versus the quantum world, and so the Newtonian is cause and effect. It's
Yeah.
logical, it's sequential, it goes in the timeline. It's what you and I learned in school. That's how it is. If you see it, it's matter, particles of matter, that's it. And he says what we're learning about science is the quantum field is waves and energy, and the quantum field is all of the possibilities around us at any one time. So it depends on your frequency and your vibrational level as to which one presents itself to you or which one you can access. So instead of cause and effect in the Newtonian,
Ah, that's
he
so
said when you learn
interesting.
that you are causing, or he said when you learn that you can cause an effect, your life will change. So if
Ah,
you can build your energy and your vibrational level, that will access and open more doors and more potential to you because it is all around us. And he said, waves and energy, not particles and matter. That's the research that's behind it now. And he talks about the that we're really electromagnetic beings. So solar flares, like we just had, I think
mhm.
on a couple weeks ago. He said solar flares, if you look at any point in history, when there is a major solar flare, when it hits Earth, the Earth shields us from the electromagnetic radiation, but because there's so much, it can't stop all of it. And because we are electromagnetic beings, it impacts us. So if I'm in a creative state, it will elevate me. If I am in a depressed state, it will push me lower. If I am in a
Mm.
really anxious state, it will increase that energy, but not in a good way. And he said, if you look at history, you can track when wars hit, when innovation hit in the world, when disease hits, because he said often that's connected to the solar flares because we are made up of electromagnetic energy. And and
Wow.
he has all of the research behind it. Like you talked about when you find your purpose and when you line up and you're authentic to that purpose, he said we actually glow brighter. And
Mm.
you can't see it. I think you can see a little bit because people look like they're full
I
of
agree.
energy.
I agree. I think you
But
know.
yes, but he said you can actually measure it. You can actually see when you use the machines that I can't remember what he called them, but it will actually show people are brighter and they're adding energy into the electromagnetic field around them instead of pulling it out.
That's so
Very
interesting.
interesting.
No
Yes. So I'm
kidding.
starting down the road of trying to learn how to meditate and do all of those things. And it's hard. I was talking with Tiffany at the end of the podcast about meditation, and she said, like, I hit that analytical mind where I think I'm almost there. And then I start thinking again too much. So there's that barrier between the analytical mind and just the being aware of the state
Mhm.
that you're in and letting go. And that's not easy. But
Mm-mm.
meditation can be one way to help level up. It actually helps your brain age slower. Meditators have, I think,
Mhm.
7-year difference in the age of their brain over a lifetime. So I think it's
I
really
believe
interesting
it.
that you brought that up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
in between, any ways for how you can sit in that uncomfort and stay and not rush it. And maybe I'm just asking because we're in an in between stage right now. But
Yeah. I think it's awareness that it's happening, and then lots of self-talk is all I can say. I mean, it's a lot, and I mean, like, I talk to myself out loud sometimes to remind myself that, uh, just now is not the time to make a decision, right? If I'm
mm,
wrestling with the right next move, it's not the right time. It'll come. And the thing about it is, it some of these in between spaces, like, we're not talking a day,
no,
like it's years. It's years of canoeing, I'll just say
mhm,
that, and so patience is a virtue for real. So I do lots of readings that,
mhm.
of people who also know about the in-between spaces. I read Pema Chodron every night,
Okay.
and I do all kinds of things like that to just remind myself. What's interesting, I think each person, will struggle with this in their own way. For me, it's a lot of like admonishment of myself that I don't have it together yet. And I think, and so being gentle with ourselves, giving ourselves grace in a real, true and meaningful slowing down and just doing that is very generous. I think it needs to happen, especially for people who have driver behavior, which is what I have. I'm just always driving, driving, driving. So, yeah.
I think that's it. It's just and I like when you said when you're wrestling with it, that's not the time. If you're
Nope.
not able to decide, that's not the next step. You just need to sit with it, keep going. And I was going to say there's likely multiple in-betweens that are happening. Some are shorter,
Right.
some are years. Just to give everybody a little bit of hope. It's not years
Yes, no, it's
that
not.
you're some things
No,
in life.
it's
It's
like
it's
you're
longer
almost,
term.
it's a
It's an
zigzag. It's like zigzags. Yeah. Yeah.
it
That's a very much, it's like, if you think of the river, you hit an eddy and you feel like you're spinning, but then you'll spin out and you're still
yeah.
making progress. So I feel like there's short-term stuff and there's long-term stuff too, which I think is, and then there's professional life and there's personal life. And, what I've been grateful for in my life is that, in those moments when I'm having professional uncertainty, I often have personal clarity. And in those moments when I have less personal clarity, I'm often okay. Like the world isn't
Right.
throwing everything at me,
And
you
if it
know.
feels like it's throwing everything at you, step back,
Yep.
take a moment, give yourself some grace that just focus on the
The
next
next thing.
and it might be
Yep.
the next minute, it might be the next hour, it might be the next day. And if you
So
break
true.
that down, that can help sometimes to find that perspective.
Very
Because
much.
sometimes you can think about next week, but, you know,
It's so true. I'll turn to my mom again, who I'm sure these aren't her words, but she always used to say
Mhm.
in those moments when we were stressed, she would say, "What does this next moment require of you? Just what
Yes.
does this next moment require of you?" So stop thinking ahead to all the things that have to be done. Just what in this moment do you need to do, and do that thing. And I think that's really good advice, especially in the in between, because when we can't solve the big problem, we can figure out what to do now. And that feels pretty good.
And not sure what I read, but they talked about that the past is done, where we think about the past and it's influencing us, but it's done. The future hasn't happened yet. The only thing we can do is live
Right now.
right now, and live in the now, deal with what's the next thing, what's this next moment, or pause and just enjoy the moment. I came home from
Mhm.
one of the stores with a little saying and it said, "These are the good old days." Because we'll be like, "Oh, the good old days." But you were living it. This is the good old days because you talked about everything continues to change and you think, "Ah, we'll do that." But then the kids are older and then they move out and then you run for different sports or you hit a different point in life. So take a moment and just pause and enjoy. These are the good old
These
days. Even if they
are
don't seem
That's
like it, you're going to look
so
back and
true.
go, wow, look at that. But it's not easy to live in the now because we're so much trying to manage all of those other pieces. But even if it's just a moment and you take a breath and you think, right now for the next maybe for moms, maybe the next 60 seconds or the 120 seconds, or for dads, you get 5 minutes to yourself. Maybe you're hiding in the bathroom. I don't
Yeah.
know, but take a moment and just breathe and think, "Okay, what am I grateful for right now or in this moment? I'm
Yeah. What
enjoying
do
my
I
time."
need to do to care for myself right now? Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's a good reminder. The in-between space, it's okay to be there, and we will get to the other side, and I like the idea of the eddy. You'll get sucked into one, and then you'll get spit out. And
Get
sometimes
spit
if you're
right out.
stuck, what's really great is a strong group of friends that will help to pull
Mhm.
you out because they can see that you're spinning and you can talk it through with them. And that's what I've always appreciated, Katie. You are a very good listener and help to find perspective through
Well,
through all of
thank
the ups
you.
and downs of life. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I always enjoy conversations with Katie. They always light my brain up and make me feel more alive and have more energy. So I hope this episode resonates with you and reminds you that the space in between is part of the level up in the mind game of life. As Katie shared, embrace the discomfort and give yourself the grace and the space to recognize it as a sign of growth. Like Katie mentioned, sometimes it's the hard way, not the quick way, and for every down, there's an up, and for every up, there's a down. And in the end, nothing's going to be the same forever. But if you shift your focus from rushing from the known to the unknown, sit with intention and wonder, the magic lies in pushing beyond your comfort zone. In the in-between, ask yourself empowering questions and give yourself the gift of time. Clarity will follow in its own time, not necessarily your timeline. Like the canoe on the river, trust the process, even when you can't see around the bend, because what you truly need might surprise you. The level up is being gentle with yourself and finding grace in the journey, because the journey is life. Until next time, keep paddling with purpose, patience, and the next podcast episode where Katie and I continue our conversation and dig into how the nevers often reveal a life we wouldn't have imagined. Thanks for listening. Here's your Mind Game Episode 5 challenge. Share this episode and let us know if you can relate to the space between. #LevelUpYourLife. Thank you for choosing to listen to Mind Game, a podcast to level up your life. We hope that you've enjoyed the insights, inspiration, and habits shared in this episode. Your support is a game changer, and we are incredibly grateful to be on this journey with such an amazing community of listeners. If you have any wonders, questions, or suggestions about this or future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media and share your feedback. Remember, you can catch all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps us bring valuable content to you, our listeners. Don't want to miss the next episode? Join our Facebook group and email list and get ahead of the game. Until next time, remember to mind the game so that you can get out of your own way and level up your life.